When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. Hate waiting? Indeed's U.S. data shows that over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. And something that I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy because candidates you invite to apply through Instant Match are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in a search, according to U.S. Indeed data. So join over 3 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent fast. Indeed knows that when you're growing your own business, you need to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/Blue Wire to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Hey, all cheaters. Welcome to the Always Cheating Podcast. The original cheaters back together again, back through the end of the season, Brandon. This is it. Maybe we'll have a guest on, but only with us. Okay, so the 2 cheaters will be here right until whenever this season ends. I think it ends what is Memorial Weekend here in the U.S. Yes. So we're going right into what I consider kind of the official start of summer. So I'm really excited to be back. I was in Mexico City for a week. It was wonderful, incredible experience. So glad I went there. Could not see a match at the Azteca, sadly, Brandon. That is, there were no matches on kind of during the time span I was there. But my name's Josh. I'm here with Brandon. Brandon, how are you?
I'm great. Great to have you back, Josh. Totally agree. And a big thanks to Tom Campbell, who guest hosted with me last week. We love Tom. He's a master broadcaster in the making. So we'll hope to have him back soon. So you were in Mexico City, south of the border. How closely were you plugged into? Were you paying attention to FPL while you were away?
Well, I sort of, as a personal goal, did not really tweet while I was there, which is an addiction that it's gotten a little easier to break, honestly, post Elon. It used to be it was a real addiction, but I was like, I'm going to try to tune out as much as possible. But our flight was timed on Saturday morning last week, so I was able to watch basically all of the Saturday game week 30 fixtures, and then I was back Friday evening in time for. And I did not build my vacation around FPL, but it did coincide nicely with. When I was the windows and I was able to watch. So I would say I was pretty plugged in. I mean, I was stressing out about my transfers. I much like you, I don't have a free hit for 32. So every move I make feels, especially fraught, right? Like, I had one false move and I feel like I'm in pretty giant trouble. So, but I'm sort of holding steady. I think much like you, I'm on 2 red arrows, but I think we both have Salah to play tomorrow. So let's, we'll see how that goes. But I think I've only dropped about 500 total spots though, since the last time you and I recorded. So, that is the nice thing is you get up into the kind of nosebleed range, right? I think I just cracked 5K. We did the pod a couple weeks ago. And to be honest, you end up just encountering a lot of similar teams once you get up that high. It's hard to climb and it's hard to fall, honestly, unless you just go super crazy there. So that's where I am now. I'm sort of like I'm like a boat, just sort of like I'm just riding the waves, not really going up or down very much right now.
Yeah, and I also have this theory that I'd like to do a little more research into of it's more like there are people ahead of me that I'm in overall rank that I'm moving past, but at the same time, there are other people behind me that are moving past me. So I feel like there are a lot of managers who are on either side of 50K who are just trading places, and I'm sort of stuck in the middle trying to grab the ball from them.
How do you turn into that second manager? That's a great question. It's a tricky one, and I think that sort of game week 31 feels like a game week of missed chances, right? You had it started off on an incredible note with Ollie Watkins just destroying Newcastle. Incredible match. And I think, and that was, he had 2 goals and an assist, and then he had an offside goal as well. So it was really, I thought a very marginally offside goal. It was very, very tight. I almost wish they don't show the lines anymore when they're, I don't know, whatever. It's VAR. Let's try to avoid it. But it was, so that was a great note. And then you had Holland get the 2 goals and off at halftime. So that's good. Keep him fresh for game week 33, Brandon. Let's keep those bones fresh. And then that was kind of it in my squad. I mean, I'm on 60 points with solid to go. So totally fine. The average is 43 for this game week overall, and 5 from Rhea. That feels like getting an attacking return. That's honestly, that worked out great. And I moved Martinelli in just because I thought I just didn't really want to go without Arsenal coverage for game weeks 31 and 32, especially without a free hit. And that worked out okay. I mean, I got the assist. I mean, I went for him over Saka, so that's a 5-point shift right there. However, I was trying to work out the math, like whether it, because I don't have Saka, but I have Martinelli. And so it was like, but Martinelli was already he was in low bonus at that point. So I was like, well, if he gets the assist, I should get 6 points from him. Yeah. But if Saka scores the goal, that's 5 points. But his ownership is quite high. So it was a weird one. And it just, but to go back to my original point, it feels like a game week of missed chances because you have Harry Kane blanking at home to Bournemouth, which just feels extremely unlikely. You have, I guess Grealish didn't blank, but he only got an assist in kind of a demolition. You have McAllister, Matoma. I don't know how they blanked in that match. That was absolutely incredible to me that those two players, that is like the most one-sided 2-1 match you will ever see. Brighton were so good on Saturday. Chelsea
could not get the ball off of them, and when Chelsea did, they just really weren't prepared to do anything with it. The XG, at least on FootMob for Brighton in that match, was 2.94, so close to 3 expected goals. Yeah. And here's a fun story. This is a fun story, Josh, that like content creators are just like you, the listeners. Sometimes we make mistakes. So I made 2 kind of oddball transfers this week. I dropped Kepa to bring in Allison, looking ahead to blank game week 32, which we're going to talk a ton about in this episode, and also Liverpool doubling in 34. So I'm taking a big risk here. We still don't know if Allison is fit to play on Monday night, so fingers crossed. And I also brought in Andreas Pereira for Marcus Rashford, and that was kind of like a future, I just want to bring some cash into my banks, maybe to bring Trent in a couple of weeks. So I wake up Saturday morning to watch the Ollie Watkins show, and I realize I have left Matoma on the bench in favor of Andreas Pereira. That was not intentional.
And I don't. To me, that's like a coin flip, right, between those two.
Well, I will say in my defense, it was actually a glorious differential opportunity because Marco Silva did not play a recognized number 9 for Fulham, and Andreas Pereira was for long stretches playing as a false 9. He had ample opportunity to score. Not as many opportunities as Matoma did, for sure, because Matoma just looked sensational that first half against Chelsea. So I do feel like I got away with it. And how do I become the manager that's leapfrogging and getting from 50K to 25K? It is Andreas Pereira getting a goal in that situation.
Yeah, so, that's true. It's worth a lot in that case.
But you certainly would have called that luck. And my score this week, I'm on 58 right now because I've got Dunk coming in as an auto sub for Luke Shaw. I was really helped out by Martin Odegaard and his 10-pointer. I have double Arsenal midfield with Saka and Odegaard. One worked, the other didn't. I mean, it's just an incredible streak of missed pens over the last 2 game weeks with Salah, Tony, and now Saka. Like, who's next? I guess we all just have to get Saeed Benrahma now if we want any of our players to score pens.
It's like I've gotten to the point where I feel like I have FPL, PTSD, penalty, traumatic stress disorder or something. It's like I feel like I'm just like, it's like every time I see one of my players step up for a pen now, I honestly just assume that they're going to miss it. Like I have gotten so, it was Salah last week, again, another missed pen. It's like, it's just driving me crazy. And so just lots of missed chances. I mean, I think, Bruno Fernandes had a great match today, played really well for the second week in a row, didn't get any attacking returns in either match, which is super frustrating because he was really my big low ownership player that I take a chance on and just hasn't really worked out. And so now I've got to figure out what I'm going to do with him. I'll talk more about that later. And then the biggest thing for me was I left 15 points from Solanke on the bench. And that is just one of those moments where I was McAllister versus Solanke. I had a version of my team where I had Solanke started probably on Thursday. And then I was like, you know what? I just don't really... I just couldn't quite decide what to do with those two. It felt like a bit of a coin flip, and I sort of thought that Brighton would do what they did, which is to have a really dominant match. I mean, Chelsea had played in the Champions League at midweek, and obviously, bringing in Lampard is really like
not great.
It just feels like it's doing, exactly. It's just not great. It's if anything, it makes me more inclined to play players against Chelsea. And so
I will say I feel bad because I feel bad, Josh. You did call it like a couple of weeks ago. You said you just feel it in your bones. Solanke has a big haul coming, and that it's really only backed up by a gut feeling there. Because I think at that point he maybe only had 3 goals on the season.
But it's about how he looks. His involvement. He's got a little bit of Ivan Toney in him. I think, and so it's 15 points with 2 assists and a goal, and but there he is. So maybe Mo Salah will get the flu or something, and I'll get Solanke in tomorrow. But either way, it's fine. You just can't kill yourself about these kind of coin flips because it's just that's just the nature of the game. And so so I'm fine. I'm at a 50. Like, I think with auto subs, I'm around 5,800 overall, which is obviously awesome. And let's see what Salah does tomorrow. And I feel like if Salah can even get a goal away to Leeds, then I think there's a good chance that you and I will both be on green arrows for this game week.
Definitely. Come on, Allison. Let's do this. I feel like missed opportunities is a good theme for this week, and injuries have really been the headline FPL news over the last 2 to 3 weeks. Just like really inconvenient injuries blowing up people's chip strategies and all of that. And with Allison, I just said, you know what? I don't have any information here, but this just is, for me, the ideal transfer. So I'm just going to risk it. I'm going to roll the dice. I mean,
it's ideal for you because you love an expensive goalkeeper.
I do. Hey, I did have a moment today where I was looking ahead to the doubles in 34, and I was like, would I even dare having both Ederson and Allison for my bench boost in 34? I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Spoiler alert, but it did cross my mind.
Yeah, let's see what happens with Steele, right? Because Steele had the minor injury, and that's kind of all we know, right? So one day they will be required, American style, to release this injury information, so we know this stuff in advance. But that day is certainly not happening, before the season's out. So that's where we are. One more match to go tomorrow, but I think if you're feeling a little frustrated and you're listening to this pod with how your game week went, I think that's a kind of universal feeling. I don't think anyone was spared the disappointment bug, right? It was sort of, the Martinelli Saka owners in particular, that missed pen is a killer for them, right? That's a massive swing in terms of points and bonus. So, but this, again, as I said, with Solanke on the bench.
A shout out to the guy on Discord. I'm forgetting who it was who actually brought in Eze for Rashford this week. So the sun shined on some managers, and that's good. Yeah. We see you.
it was like the ultimate too, because it was like two. I think they were both like unassisted goals. It was like the ultimate like no one gets these points but me. Brace. So, all right. Well, that's where we are. And obviously the focus of this week's pod is going to be a game week 32. We're going to talk about free hit strategy. We're going to talk about what you're going to do if you don't have a free hit. There are a bunch of teams that don't play, and so we'll refresh people's memory on that as well. And so that's where we're going on this week's pod, Brandon. But I did want to quickly thank our newest Patreon supporters. We have 6, Brandon, since we last recorded. So thank you to Zachary Marcus, Brian Hantman, David Corin, Julian Douglas, Sid Gapujkar, and Guy Schaefer. So thanks so much to all 6 of those patrons. If you want to support the podcast, Brandon, you and I were talking about this earlier before we recorded, and we were saying this is like our late season pledge drive, right? You never want these public radio. They always have a couple pledge. I don't know if BBC does this. I don't think it's all government funded, so probably not. But
the public services are actually public services.
Yeah, they're actually public services. Yeah, unlike what Twitter claimed NPR was or whatever, right? But it's but if you wanted to, if you've enjoyed listening to the podcast has been helpful this season, you've enjoyed listening to it, now is a great way to, and hopefully, if your season's going well and you're, looking to say thank you, then now's a good time to do it. And you go to patreon.com/alwayscheating, or if you just need some advice for the final 6 weeks of the season. I feel like ever since we moved over to the Discord from the Slack, it feels like we've kind of taken a big step forward in terms of just the conversation. It feels much more open, and there's lots of New York City event planning if you're located here, but there's people from all over, literally all over the world talking in different groups in different countries on there. So patreon.com/alwayscheating is where you can go. And we also do an extra podcast each week. We'll be doing one this Thursday. It's an important one because game week 32 does kick off on Friday. So early warning there, Brandon. Arsenal host Southampton at 3 p.m. our time on Friday. Wouldn't it be great to live in England and have that match I would love to have an 8 p.m. Premier League match. Wouldn't that be great? Just
get the gang together to watch the 8 p.m. kickoff. It would be perfect. Instead, we'll just be like hiding from our bosses at 3 p.m.
Screening it, exactly.
Nothing to see here.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, on that note, let's take a break. We'll get back and talk about game week 32. All right, Brian, we're back. Game week 32 kicks off on Friday, as noted. Arsenal host Southampton. And for those who have maybe forgotten or been in denial about this, Brandon, Man United, Man City, Brighton, and Chelsea, four squads that a lot of people have players in, are all blanking in game week 32 related to the FA Cup. So it could be more chaotic. Sometimes this is a really bad blank, and this one's more like just it's get buyable, this one. But regardless, I mean, I look at this and I guess I dropped Rashford this week because of the injuries. Now I still have 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 6 players across these 4 teams, and maybe it's more like 5 because one of them is Steele, who's I can use a different keeper.
So what does that translate into? How many players are you fielding for game week 32?
Yeah, I'm at 9 at the moment, and I think we should talk. Let's talk about our strategies in a minute, because when I put out the call for questions, I did it on our Discord, I did it on Twitter too, and the questions were really free hit focused. So I think it's a service. I know not everyone listening. Well, I mean, I'd say it's like 50-50 maybe in terms of who's going to be free hitting in 32 and who's going to be playing it straight up, right? So, let's kick things off with the free hit, because I think talking about who you would have if you were free hitting this week, right? If you could just bring in anybody, is a useful way of thinking about what I would do if I just had one transfer, which is what I have in my case, right? Or what I would do if I took a -4, which is what I'm leaning towards now. Going into this last week, I was thinking, maybe I'll just field 10, but now it's like, do I trust this Man United team? It's like everyone's injured now. Like, what am I holding on to? Bruno looks awesome, but it's like he needs Anthony Martial and Wout Weghorst to finish his chances. Like, it's just, I don't know if that's I don't know if that's worth 10 million. So yeah, I mean, how are you? Are you feeling? How many players do you have? I guess you know what? I guess we'll just kick things off with ours because otherwise it's just confusing.
We're the main characters of our story here, Josh. I love this.
we're messing the running order up already. My beloved running order. What are your current plans for 32? Lay it out for me. How many players do you have? What are you thinking transfer wise?
Yeah, so one of my concerns with 32 is I had no goalkeeper because Danny Ward doesn't play anymore, and Kep was blanking. So Allison coming in for me in 31 is hopefully going to solve that issue.
Yep.
With that, I have 10 players who can start.
Okay.
I've got Matoma, Dunk, Luke Shaw, and Holland who don't play. What I'm thinking right now is the money that I saved by turning Rashford into Andreas Pereira means I can afford to turn Luke Shaw into Trent Alexander-Arnold. So I had it in my mind that I would be very happy to go into 32 with just 10 players because I think it's going to be a real mixed bag in terms of, what other FPL managers have. I think there are going to be a lot of people either taking points hits or having or short players along with the people who are free hitting. So 10 players still feels like a strong squad for this week. But I think the ability to bring in Trent for me also plays into game week 34 and the Liverpool double home double. So that just feels like a win in 2 game weeks for me. So that is what I want. And I totally agree with you with Manchester United's form and these injuries. It's horrible for United fans and these players, but it's a blessing for fantasy because it just sort of absolves us of this strategy to try to figure out how we can keep the Manchester United players. Because I think even if Rashford comes back fit or like Luke Shaw suddenly becomes the best fullback in the world, we still have game week 33 to assess and their Europa League fixture. And we have free transfers going into 34 when Manchester United double to figure that out. So I feel like I'm feeling pretty like it's a pretty solid strategy to just dump these Manchester United guys right now.
Yeah, and 34 is really the key thing to consider. If you're in free hit, it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, you can just sort of table this for a week because there's nothing you can do to plan for it, right? Your focus is all on 32, but if you need to use transfers, then it is useful to think about what's ahead. I mean, game week 34, there are 6 teams that double. Brighton is one of them, but most of us should already have 2 or 3 Brighton players. Fulham is another, but they're certainly not essential, especially because they play Man City and Liverpool in 34. It's
worst imaginable double fixture
it really is
for a team that's kind of on the beach. I mean, they did put Everton to the sword. That gives me a little bit of hope that there's some juice left to squeeze out of this Fulham season.
At the very least, it means they're not going out of losing out, to end the season.
Yeah, if they were to end on 39 points in a massive losing streak, that would be pretty psychologically bad,
damaging. Yeah, I agree. So Fulham aren't super worth worrying about too much. Liverpool play twice at home. They play Spurs and Fulham at home. Man City played twice as well, and now we've got some questions about what to do there. I'm probably going to stay away from their defense, to be quite honest. But
clockwork, Josh, the 75th minute clean sheet wipeout continues to be a curse.
Man City. And Kanji doesn't play, Ake and Akanji don't start, and then Akanji comes on in the 75th minute. I don't think Ake got any minutes in this one. No. And then you have Man United, who are a little bit of a question mark, and you have West Ham. And West Ham is the interesting one now, because I really wasn't thinking too strongly about West Ham, and now I'm wondering if Jared Bowen actually might be a player that I have to give a little thought and attention to. So
he's kind of been under the radar, ticking along with particularly assists. Weirdly, he's not the goal machine that he was last season. But you then go to the transfer page and you're like, wow, Jared Bowen is $8 million. It's quite rich, but I agree with you. It's definitely chin scratching as you look ahead to their double on 34, and they play this coming game week.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think the question for me is, do I just decide right now that whoever I bring in is going to be just a complete placeholder for me, and that my next 2 transfers are going to be Rashford and Grealish. And if I do that, then it kind of doesn't matter who I get in 32, because the slot that I replace Bruno with will just turn into one of those 2 players, and then the Martinelli spot will probably turn into the other player, because I have Salah and then I have the 2 Brighton midfielders. So that would be the kind of 5 that I would plan to play in 34. So it's, and then I would bench. I play like a 3-5-2 and bench one of my forwards in that case. Maybe Big Dom Solanke. Although who does Bournemouth play? They play Leeds at home, man. I don't know. Maybe maybe it's actually Ollie Watkins in his incredible form. So we'll see what happens there. But I think but Bowen might be the pick because he plays away to Bournemouth in 32, and even though Bournemouth have played a little bit better recently, I think that they. I don't know. I mean, what do you think about West Ham today? We didn't do too much real like outside of fantasy talk at the start of the podcast, but what did they play well, or did Arsenal just totally just trip over their own 2 feet in that match?
I hate turning it into an anti-Arsenal point of view, but that's my view. Is it's now 2 league matches in a row where Arsenal have just handed 2 points over to Man City, or however you would want to phrase it.
Yeah, and I think when I think ahead to 34, I mean, losing Gabriel Juliana Margulies, Gabriel Margulies, losing, dropping him for another Game Week 34 defender is something I'm very strongly considering. So I think for me right now, what I'm looking at for my own squad, and maybe this is helpful for Game Week 32 free hitters, maybe it's not, is Bruno to Bowen, and then probably Shaw to, well, it would be Shaw. It'd be Shaw to a Liverpool defender. Now, for me, I have to actually do some back of the cocktail napkin math on this a little bit, because it may not make sense for me to go Trent, and I may go with a cheaper defender, someone like Robbo or Van Dijk, because I might need that extra money to bring in Grealish and Rashford for the 2 players I really want to have, in addition to who I already have for 34. So that's something I'm going to keep in mind a little bit as well. I honestly don't know how much of a drop off it really is. I mean, I don't know what to think anymore with Liverpool's defense. I mean, I'm not even convinced I'm going to bring in a Liverpool defender. I want to see how they look tomorrow in that Leeds match. I mean, it'd be nice to see them actually looked like they were capable of keeping a clean sheet before I started to drop $7.5 million on Trent Alexander-Arnold. It's sort of
this is the appeal of Trent, because with him it's hardly about the clean sheets. He's basically another attacker for you, and the goodwill that I have towards Trent is almost solely based on the second half against Arsenal last week, where Trent basically decided he was going to helped to carry that Liverpool attack, and I thought he looked incredible in that second half. And yes, I agree with you. If he can keep that up, and and even better, if the entire Liverpool defense looks a little stronger and more organized against Leeds on Monday, then I think a Liverpool defender is a great move as we look ahead to 32 through 34.
Yeah. The back on Liverpool just for 1 second. If Cody Gakpo looked really good tomorrow, he would be somebody I would also consider for that midfield slot, because he also plays twice. It's like I just want to kind of hedge my bets a little bit if I can. The only problem I have right now, and maybe I can use this as a way to transition into the free hit talk here, Brandon, is all right. You're on a free hit. There are the and let's officially do that. I'm clapping my hands for you, right? So now it's reset. We're resetting here. All right, so you're on a free hit. There are the essentials, the players that you absolutely want to have. 3 Arsenal, 3 Liverpool, and then what I'm calling some effective ownership shield picks that you could really strongly consider: Kane, Trippier, Watkins, and then the fun players that you can fill out your squad with. A couple players maybe that have low ownership, just because why free hit if you're not going to do something like a little fun? That's my thinking. Even if it doesn't work out, at least you have that glorious sweat, that 2 hour window where if you get a single point from that player, it's like we were talking about Eze earlier. If you get points from that player, that is those are your points alone. It's such a satisfying feeling. So when it comes to Arsenal Liverpool, the question is who. And I think Mo Salah's, let's start with Liverpool. Mo Salah is an easy pick. I think in a free hit, Trent is an easy pick. For a third Liverpool player, are you thinking Darwin? Are you thinking the Gak Man? Are you thinking Jota? Take a real risk. Are you thinking Robbo? You have Allison. There are.
Yeah.
I was like, you also have Allison. That's another route you can go.
That is not something we're recommending, but that is a statement, as a fact. I feel like on a free hit, my inclination is to go a little bit more attacking oriented. And I think it probably is Gakpo, because the issue with Darwin and Jota is that they are rotating on that left-hand side, and Gakpo is taking up that more central position. And I don't think that Gakpo's missed any starts where Darwin has.
I think he missed one. Did he miss the? Let me pull up.
Oh, when the full squad was basically rotated so that Curtis Jones could ride again.
Exactly.
So I think it's Salah, Gakpo, and Trent feels optimal to me. Darwin, I was talking on our Patreon pod last week how Darwin feels like a tremendous differential pick if you're in a position where you want to catch a mini league rival who's ahead of you by like 20, 30 points. Because Darwin, while, we've got a lot of caveats around this guy, he has it in him to brace easily.
It's just crazy. I mean, Liverpool have these amazing home results this season, right? They have the Man United match. They have the Bournemouth match in game week 2 or whatever that was. And so they play home. I think it's 3. They have home matches in 4 of the next 5. In fact, they play at home 4 of the next 5. Forest, Spurs. Well, the way to West Ham in 33, and then Spurs, Fulham, Brentford in those matches. So I think it does make sense to double up there. And in fact, I think I would even be okay going with a Gakpo type over Grealish, right? Like it's at some point you just have to pick your spots a little bit, and it may just not work for me to work him in. But then you're like, okay, great. So like let me think about another attacker here. Let me think about Darwin. Darwin gets 12 points in game week 26, 2-1, 2-1. We'll see what he gets tomorrow, right? You have Gakpo has also great. He has a brace in that match at home to Man United. 2-2-1-2 in the 4 since then. Jota's even worse. He's at like 2-2-5-1-1-5-2. It's like binary code, Brandon. These are not the kind of numbers. I mean, okay, there's some 5s thrown in there, but in general, these are not the numbers you want to. Yeah, these are not the numbers you want to see when you're looking at players. And the other problem is that there's nobody else, right? You have Luis Diaz, way too risky, could not be considered. There's no other midfielders, and then defensively, I mean, part of me is like, let me just bring in Van Dijk, 0.8 million cheaper than Trent, and just hope he bangs in a header. They play at home 4 of the next 5 weeks. What are the odds that Van Dijk gets a header in one of those 2 matches?
Hey, if Lewis Dunk and Kurt Zuma can do it, I'm feeling confident that Van Dijk can pull it together.
I think so too.
If Van Dijk scores a header in this home stretch, I'll just say it, Josh. I'll write you a recommendation on LinkedIn.
Gosh. Wow.
That's something I will do if Van Dijk scores in any game week, starting in game week 32 through 34. The deal ends after 34.
I think you should include 35 though, because I'm talking about this home run. So.
I'll include 35.
Okay, great. Now I feel whole now. So I think if I were free hitting, Van Dijk, Trent, Salah. Those are the 3 that I would go with. I would gamble on the clean sheet at home to Forest. The Forest looked terrible today, really, really bad, and at home too. And they had actually been pretty strong at home. They had been scoring in many of these home matches.
Usually, like never fail to score. Yeah, I had predicted that score at 2-1 just because I'm like, look, Forest always score. They always find a way.
Yeah, playing a second.
They're running out of gas here.
Yeah, I think they are too. And they're not necessarily safe, but they're probably safe, which is crazy. I mean, I would love to, I don't know, if someone's listening to this podcast and they, know somebody at Forest, I would love to have them on. I would love to like just hear in the off season or something about their transfer strategy, because it's so fascinating to me that it's. Okay, you know what? they're at 18th place. They have lost 4. They've lost 4 or 5. Why am I talking about them like they're like in 12th? I have no idea. Yeah, they're in big trouble. Tied with Everton. So, I mean, right now, looking at the table, it looks like Southampton and Leicester are really going to struggle to stay up. And then you've got Forest, Everton, Leeds, and that kind of next pool. I mean, West Ham are in 15th place, but just to me, West Ham, it's hard for me to imagine a team with Declan Rice and Jared Bowen and Antonio and just they're just too solid. There's too much Premier League quality there for them to go down. And then Bournemouth, I think, are safe too, which is kind of impressive. And I think Solanke is a big part of that. So, all right. So you and I differ a little bit on that. And I guess the rationale for me for Van Dijk, if I were free hitting again, is just that I think there's a decent chance that he just scores a header in this game at home to Forest. You know what? And if he scores a header in this one match, Brandon, I will retweet one of your tweets this week on my personal Twitter feed. How about that? So you got to come up with a good one, not one of your obscure tweets that you often do. These like inside jokes to yourself that nobody
like
understands.
My grocery shopping list. Just tweet it to myself so I don't forget.
I will. You know what?
Okay.
I won't just retweet it. I'll quote tweet it. I will recommend the tweet with a quote tweet, Brandon. So
you're on. Let's go, Van Dyke.
There we go. All right, we got some fun stuff happening. Yeah, we could both win if he scores in 30-32. So, but I think it's really open. But obviously Trent and Salah are the two obvious ones, and then it's like a shooter's choice. Just have fun with that third pick, because it's really hard to say who the best option is there. It kind of depends whether you want to go offense or defense. I think you made a good case for offense. Arsenal, I think I'm going all offense if I have Arsenal. I think that it's the forward thing is tricky, because there actually are, the one thing that you have in a free hit are a wealth of solid forward options in Game Week 32. You have Ollie Watkins, an absolutely incredible form. It'd be really hard not to have him on a free hit. You have, Solanke, who's been awesome, plays, the last couple of weeks, plays at home to West Ham. You have Gabriel Jesus scored today.
He's scored 4 in 3 matches, I think, since he's returned from injuries.
Is that right? Yeah, it's like someone like what he did the start of the season. Yeah. You have Harry Kane, who is kind of your effective ownership shield pick, but he's Harry Kane. I mean, and Newcastle are fading. But if you wanted to, Isak, I think is another option, right? Because Spurs are just not keeping clean sheets right now. So you kind of go through the lineup, and then you have Ivan Toney as well, and Brentford are incredibly good at home. So, but I think that's I would certainly lean towards, and in fact, maybe this is where the free hit question, the decision about who to pick between Arsenal and Liverpool start to correlate a little bit, because maybe it makes more sense to have a second Liverpool defender, because that opens up a midfield spot for an Arsenal midfielder.
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah, and so maybe that's something to consider, and maybe you go. I'm trying to think the midfielders I would really, really want for this week. I think you could make a strong case for going Salah and 3 Arsenal midfielders as your midfield. So it'd be like a 3-4-3, Salah, and then you go Martinelli, Odegaard, Saka, and then up front you'd have, take your pick, right? I mean, no one's so expensive in this free hit that you couldn't kind of have anybody you wanted. And then defensively, maybe you have 2 Liverpool defenders, and I don't know, maybe what do you think about Leno as a possible keeper option for Game Week 32? I kind of like him as a, especially if you can't, if you're loaded up on the Arsenal players and you're loaded up on Liverpool, is he the 3rd best keeper to have for 32?
I like the Leno pick, but actually who I like better is Sam Johnstone at Crystal Palace, who is now starting. He's back fit. Don't have to start that weedy, small, young guy. Good as he was. But 2 starts for Sam Johnstone and 2 clean sheets. And he's also getting a decent save points. He had 4 saves against Southampton, 7 against Leeds. So I like him. And even
Okay.
I would
I like
consider
that.
him. I mean, Guaita is projected to be back fit by the end of April. I do wonder if Johnstone actually gets to actually gets to keep the number one slot, because Palace are just kind of in the zone right now. But a free hit, there's like zero risk with getting Johnstone in.
I like that pick. That makes a lot of sense. In fact, I think I think I would just go ahead and do that, and then maybe I'd have Leno as my second keeper just for safety's sake.
Totally.
Good. All right, we're just like banging through these right now, Brandon. What do you think about Trippier? Does he just have to be in your squad?
I feel like there's not a high enough ceiling with other defenders. So granted, we're all going to get LinkedIn recommendations and retweets because Van Dijk is going to score 20 points. Apart from him, though, I just think Trippier could produce a 12-pointer easily for you. Granted, Newcastle are a little bit on the wane. I agree with you. But I don't think there are other options that are just going to make it worth that risk. And I feel like this is one spot in a free hit where you can be a little risk averse.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, he's probably going to be like 99.3% owned, right? When you can combine, because he's in almost everybody's regular team. And I would imagine most free hitters will have him as well. I mean, he's home. He hasn't really done. I don't know. I mean, actually, I think he was kind of. I think in the first half he was in the. You know how I don't know. I think you're just like me and you're checking this stuff all the time. But he was on for a couple bonus early in the second half, right? Just because of the chances that he was creating and stuff like that. So it feels like it's just a matter of time before he starts to come back around a little bit. And I don't know. I mean, they need it's actually a really crucial Champions League Champions League tie. Right?
Newcastle is getting bailed out because Spurs have hit a rough patch themselves. So, but I agree. Like, if Newcastle can beat Spurs on their home patch, then that puts them in a really good position to finish in fourth.
Yeah, which I'm kind of like rooting for, just to mix things up a little bit. It feels kind of fun to me to have Newcastle in there, but
you got to get another oil state in the mix. That sounds fun to me too.
It's still fun right now. They're still in their Man City buying Robinho phase, right? Like kind of early on.
You're right. Yeah.
It'll get less annoying later. I mean, Man City's now probably going to win their fifth title in 6 years, and I mean, but I don't know. Like, hopefully that can't happen again, right? I mean, they quite literally cheated to do that, right? As now has been at least alleged.
Did we all just forget about that big news story earlier this season where the FA was like, "Oh, so Man City is going to jail."
I know. It's like this stuff. It's so much news. It's like it's how I think about the Super League sometimes. Like, was that all a dream? Like, did the Super League actually get announced and then go away 2 days later? Did that actually happen? It feels like such a weird, distant memory at this point. All right, so I think we're there. I think we talked about forwards. We talked about how you really have your pick of forwards. If I were to put you on the spot here a little bit and you were free hitting. Subject to change, of course. But if you had to pick three forwards right now, who would you have for Game Week 32?
I'm honestly, I'm a little bit more bullish on Jesus on a free hit. I think it then becomes a really tough sort of crapshoot to pick which two Arsenal mids, because I feel like I'm always going to miss out on the one that actually gets points. But I like Jesus. Yeah. The Brentford Villa match is actually interesting. Tony versus Watkins, and Watkins, a former Brentford player. You could imagine a classic no celebration goal from Watkins in that match, but I expect that to be a tighter affair because, as you mentioned, Brighton are so good at home. So it's Kane, Jesus, and give me a third one. Maybe it is Watkins just because you have to go foreign player.
I think I would go Kane, Tony, and Watkins. I would go with the foreign Watkins, but I think Ivan Toney at home is just terrific. He's just been so good at home, and I think that he's I don't know. I mean, otherwise it's Isak. I think is another pick. Again, there's just a lot. There's a lot that you could go a little different here. You could go Gabriel Jesus, you could go Isak, and you're probably going to be okay. I actually think if I were to just start with two, I would start with Tony and Watkins, and then Kane is the one who I could think you could consider going without, just because it is a tricky away match.
Yeah, that is fair. I mean, we're just not gonna talk about Darwin Nunez. I mean, he's
give me a break. Like can that guy actually play? Like, I mean, yeah, maybe he gets a hat trick tomorrow, but it's just so tiring with him.
Yeah.
Like we're 30 weeks in, and we still haven't had a real proper run where he's played well.
Yeah.
It's just like it's hard to really strongly consider it.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I think that's right. I think you can. The forward on a free hit is that's the opposite of what I was saying about Trippier. That's the position where you can get a little creative and find a lower ownership fun pick for you.
Yeah. I think Jared Bowen, I talked about him a little bit already. I think he's, if you want to be a little different, I think he's kind of a fun pick there. I think if you don't have a free hit, I like Bowen a lot as well, because again, he plays twice in 34. They're not great matches, especially with Crystal Palace returning to form. They're both away in 34. So he's not like maybe the optimal pick. I would really like to talk myself into Cody Gakpo. That would make things a lot easier for me if I were able to do that. But I don't know. Let's see. And I think, I mean, Eze is another one, right? I mean, he's a kind of a fun pick. You could have him for a couple of weeks. I mean, if you just know that you're going to flip your player in 34 for one of these doublers, whoever you bring in, it is kind of fun to think about who you could target just for a 2-week window, like who's got a really nice 2-week run of matches. I mean, just looking through this list right now, it might honestly be Liverpool. I mean, Forest and West Ham away. That's not a bad 2-week run. Newcastle, they're okay, but they don't have a great midfield option, right? No one you'd really strongly consider. Bowen, I guess. Bournemouth and Liverpool. But Liverpool at home. Like, if you're if you're the squad playing Liverpool at home, I feel like you should expect to be scoring in that match. So I mean, it's kind of, there's not like a great. I mean, I guess you do have James Maddison, but I think you and I are both. He's on the ban list right now. Yeah, the whole team's
he's banned. Much love, Mad Dog, because I know you're out there listening. But your team stinks, and let's start fresh next season.
Yeah, let's start fresh next season. What about just to throw one out again? If you were just on a very short term move. Looking at Aston Villa quickly, is there anybody on Villa outside of Watkins? I mean, they have been defending, very well. And would you consider like a Emi Buendia, like just kind of take a little risk?
I absolutely would, because I had Emi on the Buendia, that is, on my free hit.
That's right.
A few weeks ago, and he got that crazy goal in injury time. So, and I think if you just think about the incredible form that Villa are in. Buendia is he's not really been returning super consistently, but in that spirit of 1 week punts, I think he's got to be on the list.
Yeah, just given their form right now, right? 5 in a row. Yeah. It's actually 7. They've won 7 of 8, and the other match was a draw. So they have an 8-match unbeaten run. They really have. It's so impressive.
They flew past Brighton. Everyone is talking about Brighton like they're winning the Europa Conference League next season. But no, it's going to be Villa.
Yeah. They do have, Brighton has 2 in hand versus Villa, though, Brandon. So we could see a late, that could be fun. A little late charge there for Europa League spot. It's so confusing. Now, do you even remember who gets the Europa League spots? I know it's 5th place, but is it like 5th and 6th? And do they still have the gentlemen's, like the yellow, remember the whatever they called, like the good sportsmanship Europa League spot or whatever that was called?
I don't think they do. Honestly.
Okay.
Yeah. So 5th and 6th get Europa League, and 7th is the Europa Conference, and everybody below that gets a ribbon.
I forgot about the Europa Conference. Well, Europa Conference is kind of fun too. I mean, West Ham are in the middle of that right now. I mean,
having it's like terrible season, and they're still in Europe. So there you go.
Yeah, I think exactly. It's like it's the Europa Conference thing. It's like everyone laughs about it until suddenly you're in the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and then it's like, well, hey, it's a European. I don't care what level it is. It's a European Cup. Where the elimination rounds, you got to go for it.
Absolutely.
So, all right, well, let's wrap things up here, Brandon, with a quick lightning round. Okay, lightning round. Okay. Every question will be asked to you, or you'll ask it to me in less than 30 seconds. Every response will take less than 30 seconds. This is old school, like I said before, at the start of the pod, Brandon. So this is the Always Cheating reset. Okay, the
I love it.
Final stretch of the season reset here. Start things off with Sam. How about we alternate? Who asked the other person the question? Okay, and I'll start with Sam, and then you can do Clarky, who we've got next here. Sam says, which players are worth a hit to get in for game week 32 if you're replacing someone that has a blank?
I mean, we talked a lot about Liverpool already, but it's true. I think you quickly get that -4 back with somebody like Trent because Liverpool do have that double in 34. Yeah. So I think if you're taking a hit in 32 to fill that spot, I would focus on the few assets that then also double in 34. And then I think that really does wipe away that -4 pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think that I would agree. I think that I'm strongly considering a -4 myself, and it would be for 2 Liverpool players because you get them for 30 for a very good 30. I mean, it's not that you just get them for the 30. I mean, home to Forest is just a terrific fixture, right? And so it's
totally
you consider those in a -4 even in a normal situation.
All right, Clarky is next. Josh, lightning sound effect. Pew, pew. Clarky asks, as it stands, I have no keeper for game week 32. Is there a keeper that's likely to repay a -4 this game week? Who would... You're very anti-premium goalkeeper, so Allison is off the table here, even though we could apply the same logic from the last question on this.
Well, I'm not hugely into premium goalkeepers, and I mean we've seen it with Ederson recently. I mean it's just it tends to be a little. I mean, Allison, I don't know. I guess because Liverpool have been shakier, he has been a little bit better fantasy wise. But often, what you get with expensive keepers are it's like you either get 6 points or 2 points, right?
Yeah.
You either get a clean sheet or so So if you brought in an expensive one, you're kind of hoping for a 2-pointer, like a 2-point gain, or you're going to lose points on it. If you bring in a keeper from a team that's not as good, honestly, then you're sort of maybe going to get a clean sheet. Maybe you get enough saves to get 3 or 4 points, but I would just go without a keeper for 32 if I didn't have one. I do not think there's a keeper that's likely to repay a -4. And I know people start to be like, well, I mean, the only thing I would say is, I guess, if there's like a situation where it's kind of like you with Allison, where it's solving a problem for 34, right? Yeah. Like I'm going to bring in this keeper, but then they double. So I don't know. So in that case, I guess maybe Allison does. Like in your literal case, I can understand the rationale for Allison. In general, I don't think it's worth -4 that game week.
You could argue for Fabianski, who has Bournemouth in 32, plus a mediocre double in 34, or even just to simplify the goalkeeper thing. Why are we not all getting David Raya right now? Because he is a mean machine. He doesn't double in 34, but he's got some decent fixtures. He's got Forest at home in 34. So, look at Raya.
Exactly. I think Raya's he's been like a low key star for my squad. I think I've had him since my game week 8 wildcard. All right, next question comes from. We got 2 more questions, Brennan. Comes from FPL Faceoff, aka Fitz. It says team dependent, of course, but would you prefer to free hit in 32 or 34? It says I can get it I can get a -4 for 11 and 32, and I plan to free hit in 34. But I'm a little worried about losing ground. He says, I'm just outside the top 10K. So we talked a little bit about 32 and 34. We talked about 34, the teams that played twice, just as another quick refresher: Brighton, Fulham, Liverpool, Man City, Man United, West Ham. And then this week it's Man City, Man United, Chelsea, Brighton that don't play. So what do you think about if you had the option to go for either one? What would you do?
Yeah, well, there are other chips in play. A concern you might have if losing ground is something you don't want to do is there will be people triple captaining in 34. Yep. So if you free hit in 34, you lose that ability. But if the free hit is the only chip you have left and you can field 11 in 32 with a -4, then I would lean toward a free hit in 34.
Yeah.
Just feels like a higher upside with 34 and a free hit.
I think so too. I like the idea of free hitting in 34, especially Ben Crowlin, who has not had a great game week, partially because he's planning, I think, for the free hit 34. Wanted to set himself up for 32, but I think it's really going to pay off. I think that the people who, and he mentions Fitz that he's worried about losing ground, but you just see it as a 3-week run that will end.
Totally.
So I think it's okay. I mean, I remember when I wildcarded in. You and I both wildcarded in 27, and 27 didn't work out great. 28 didn't work out great. 29 worked out unbelievably well. Right? It was an amazing week, and so it's like you have to. And so right now, if you can get to 11 and 32, that's probably fine. And because again, I don't think the band of scores is going to be that high. Right. And so, it kind of goes back to what you said. The upside is probably higher than 34 because just the band of scores, the range of possible outcomes is probably a little bit swingier in 34. And so it feels a little more aggressive to free hit there. All right. Final question.
Final lightning round question comes from Swamp Dragon. Is it time, Josh, to move on from Bruno Fernandes? I'm glad I'm throwing this one at you. Swamp Dragon says he did look better with the return of Casemiro. So Bruno, I think the last 2 matches has played really well. No fantasy returns to show for it. Your patience is running thin, I'm guessing, Josh.
Well, it is running thin. I mean, the problem is, the players that he's creating chances for aren't players who can score much, right? I mean, Anthony has blown a number of Bruno chances over the last couple of weeks. He did luck into a goal today because Martial couldn't finish a chance that Bruno created. And, it was just like, it was such a frustrating match. And oh my gosh, I mean, Keylor Navas, what a gift for Forest to have someone like him down the stretch here. Because I thought he played really, really well. And, I don't know. I mean, if you don't have any other problems in your squad, right? If you have Bruno and you're free hit in 32, then I would keep him. I think in my case, it's if Rashford comes back, he's still playing kind of deep. He's really expensive. You're not really getting your money's worth for him. I mean, it's kind of the same problem with Salah, honestly. I mean, I don't love that I have Salah right now either, and it's just sort of kind of stuck with him maybe for the rest of the season, certainly through 35, I would imagine. And that's just, so I just think I won out. I would like to be off of him. And so I think that, and he's not partially because he's expensive. If it was cheap, I'd probably just roll it. But, but moving him frees up enough money to bring in a Trent or Van Dijk or whatever, right? Yeah. So that's part of it.
The midfield is really interesting right now because there are we've had so many great midfielders in fantasy this season, but it's gone kind of quiet. It's gone a little cold, a little stale since the Rashford injury. It's really all about Manchester City right now, and nobody really wants to talk too much about City because of this blank in 32. So I think it's tricky, and like I was saying about my stance on Manchester United at the top of the pod is I would get rid with the acceptance that you would bring Manchester United assets back ahead of 34 if it felt justified.
When is that? So game week 33 is the Arsenal Man City match. Is that a midweek match? Because that's
on a Wednesday, yeah.
Oh, what a heartbreaker. What am I going to do? Colin's sick. I got to figure this out. This might be one where I actually try to record it and go on complete media blackout until that evening. That might be the way it has to happen. Is that next week? Yeah, we got a tricky one. Yeah, it's a midweek next week.
I at least work from home on Wednesdays, so I might be able to sneakily watch that one in real time. But I agree. It does feel like a match where you want to give that match your undivided attention, because hopefully I think it will be just not a rout.
Ideally I'm drinking while watching. Yeah, I know. I don't think it will be. I think it's going to be a really interesting and competitive match, but I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Arsenal need to clean up things with home to Southampton. Maybe get their confidence back a little bit, kind of like that Villa match did for them a few weeks ago.
Well, that's an interesting point. Just real quick, I guess the last note on 32 is. The brief for Arsenal against Southampton might be we need to score like six goals, because they need to boost that confidence looking to Man City, because that will be for the title, that Man City match.
Yeah, it really will be. I mean, if Man City win that, it's pretty much over. I would think. I mean, But do you think? I guess one final thing, captaincy. Are you? Is it Salah all the way? Anyone else you'd consider for 32?
I have Vice on Saka, though. After that pen miss, and he's been a little quiet the last few weeks, if not just not starting after the international break. My confidence is right where the Arsenal confidence is right now with him. Yeah. So Salah just feels like just kind of a no-brainer. In a way. Yeah.
I thought Saka was really off the boil myself. I didn't think he was super impressive. All right. So, but I would not be surprised at all to see him do a big comeback in Game Week 32. All right. So that's your pod. Thank you for listening. Hopefully we helped some people out a little bit. If you want to say thanks, I feel like I helped myself a little bit, Brennan. I clarified some things. Good. If nothing else, I helped myself. If you want to say thanks, support the podcast, talk to us on the Discord, get an extra podcast each week, get T-shirts, et cetera, go to patreon.com/alwayscheating. Brendan, do you want to thank our producer patrons?
Would love to. Thanks to producers Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, our buddy Chris Howell, Babas Kuhn, James Holland, Dave Wegner, Lodal, Nick Wright, Lazarus Yanos, Jesse Halstead, Bruce Kerr, Brian Chin, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Dan Parsons, at FPL Merch, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, Buffalo Wildmings, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Caleb Robbie, Vulgar, Paulson Kruger, Alex Holcomb, James Keatley, The Saint, Bob Fox, Craig Jackson, Thomas Andre, Shalin F. Kadakia, Terrence O'Donnell, Paul Hertzing, Heath Cram, Thomas Tislov, and Noah and Louise. Rate, review, and subscribe to the Always Cheating podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on social media. And for all this information, visit our website at alwayscheating.com.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And good luck in Game Week 32.